Brianne's go ahead here. She can hear us downstairs.
We're good to go.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody to the Design Advisory Panel meeting for April 27th, 2023. So we'll call the meeting to order and just make a note that we've had a late item, and there was an addition to the application DP 1301 that we're going to be looking at this evening. It was an additional landscape plan. Have all the committee members, panel members seen those plans? Should have gotten a few days ago. Okay. Sounds good. So maybe I can have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended with that addition from somebody. Angela will make the motion. Seconder. Jason, all in favor? Great. Okay. And we have one set of minutes this evening to look at and to approve. That's from our last meeting on April 13th. And just wondering if everybody had a chance to see those and if there's any issues with them. Okay, seeing none, if I can have a motion to accept those minutes as presented. And Angela again, seconder. Ken, and all in favor? Great. That part's done. Excellent. So we've got two presentations this evening, and both of them will be introduced by Sadie Robinson, our city planner. And the first property is on Hecate Street. So take her away, Sadie.
Madam Chair. Development permit application DP 1299 at 880 Hecate Street is for an 8-unit multifamily development within a 3.5-story building form. The subject property is located in the Nob Hill neighborhood on the west side of Hecate Street between Kennedy Street and Medea Way. The property is zoned Old City Medium Density Residential R15 and is designated Old City Neighborhood in City Plan. It falls within Development Permit Area 8 for form and character and the General Development Permit Area Design Guidelines and Old City Multifamily Residential Guidelines apply to the proposed development. There are a few variances associated with the proposed development, which are as follows. To reduce the required front yard setback from 6 meters to 4.5 meters, a variance of 1.5 meters. To increase the maximum building height from 9.5 meters to 10.45 meters, a variance of 0.95 meters. To increase the maximum percentage of small car spaces from 40 to 50%, a variance of 10% equivalent to 1 vehicle space. To reduce the required setback for refuse enclosures from 3 meters to 1.88 meters, a variance of 1.12 meters. And finally, to increase the maximum fence height within front and rear yards to allow 3 proposed arbor trellises within the front yard and 1 proposed trellis within the rear yard. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Okay, so the applicant can go ahead. And who's presenting this evening?
I will be presenting.
Chrissy, okay. You go ahead, then you can share your screen.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so this first presentation is 880 Hecate Street. I'm going to start off by just providing some orientation on the site. So here we see Hecate Street, and this is to the west. This direction is west, and this direction is north. This is our property right here. In this proposal, we are presenting a single development, like a single building with a total of 8 units. We have 4 one-bedroom units on the ground level, the level 1 right here. And level 2 and 3 are 2-story, 2-bedroom units, townhomes, and there are 4 of those as well. All of the 4 townhome units are identical to each other, and the 4 one-bedroom units are also identical to each other. If I move forward here, this is an aerial view and some street view renderings as well. Here we have the site plan. We have this our main building facing Hecate Street, and we also have access to a lane from the north. We have the entire parking situation located in such a way that it can be accessed directly from the lane. Of our 8 units, the 4 townhome units, the ones located on levels 2 and 3, can be accessed through a series of stairs here and here that provide access to units 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the townhome units. The 1-bedroom, 1-level units can be accessed from the rear, but they also have access to patios facing the front. We have this landscaped area up front that also acts as a small amenity space for us. In terms of parking, we're providing the required parking here and here. We also have some common facilities like the trash located here and bike storage and some common services here as well. On the north end of the property, we have a lane dedication of 1.64 meters located here. In terms of the unit plans, as I mentioned earlier, all of the 1-bedroom units are and the townhome units are identical in nature. So we have our entrances for the 1-bedroom units here. We have living, kitchen, dining, and bedroom, and then finally an access to patio facing Hecate Street. As we go to the front of the building, we have access to the top units from here and here. On level 2, we have the living, kitchen, and 1-bedroom bathroom. We also have a staircase that goes up. As we go up, we have access to 1 bedroom and a den that's facing Hecate Street, which also has views to the front of the street. And balconies in the rear. For some of the units, 3 of the units, 2 side units and 1 middle unit here, we have a staircase that goes further up here and lands into an in-roof deck for both the side units and an open deck for one of the center units. Here we see the elevation. We can see on the rear elevation here, the 4 accesses to the rear units. And in the front elevation over here, we see access through these staircases to the townhome units that are located here. In terms of the sections, side elevations, we see that the site is relatively flat, and we have the lower level unit sort of recessed a little bit into the grade. And so we have some stairs to access the units from the rear here. And maybe I can move on to the 3D model to explain this further. In terms of the elevation, we've gone for a very residential look with a lot of the characteristics that are described in the Old City design guidelines. We have traditional elements and multiple sloped roofs. We also have these features that are tucked in roof decks located at the top. In the rear of the building, you can see the parking area as well as some common facilities at the back. To go back onto the site plan, to go back onto the data, we are achieving the allowed limits for FAR and lot coverage. We also have the required amount of parking. We have some variances which include height, setback, parking ratio variance, fence height variance, as well as trash area location variance. And I want to provide a brief explanation about each of them. In terms of the height variance, it's pretty much just the top of the pitched, the gable roofs that is the section that we're asking for the variance. So in terms of the negative effect of this variance, we we feel like it doesn't have a major negative impact. And in terms of their positive impact, we are able to provide gable roofs in keeping with the old city design guidelines. The next variance that we're asking for is a front yard setback variance. So to explain this, I'm going to jump back onto the site plan. Here we see that the building line itself, and this is where the building ends, this is the total of 6 meters of the entire setback requirement away from the front of the street. The portion of the building that triggers the front yard variance is the stairway as well as the corridor used to enter the townhomes. And so while we understand that this creates a variance, we also require this because of the space constraint of this lot, just being able to provide parking and unit entrances. And we also think that the parts of the building that actually project into the front yard don't have the kind of impact that the rest of the massing of the building has. They are like light staircases and airy entranceways. So that's something to keep in mind. The next variance we're requesting is a small car ratio variance. So this equals a one car variance in terms of the ratio of small to large cars. This again comes down to the site constraints that we have. And finally, the last variance that we are requesting is a trash location variance, that is this dimension. We are required to provide 3 meters and we are 1.1 meters short. But one thing to consider in this is that we're also providing a 1.64 meter lane dedication at this end. And so that is one of the things other than the site constraint that is limiting the amount of space that we have available for the parking area. Overall, we are providing I think what is an elegant sort of house that adds to the traditional looking homes in the old city quarter while also meeting the increasing housing demand. And I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Just trying to see if Brad is on the call. Scrolling through my, oh, there he is. Brad, did you want to present?
Probably not hearing yet.
Okay.
This is connecting to audio.
There he is.
Hi there.
Hi, Brad. Did you want us to pull up your landscape plan, or did you have that on? Yeah? Okay.
If you've got a handy, yeah, I have it here too, but if you have
you do. Okay. I can grab. I'll just pull up the colored concept plan. Okay.
Okay, so do you want me to describe it for you?
Sure.
Okay, so we start at the front, and essentially with this one, because we have a fairly tight front yard setback, we put 4 Acer Griseum trees, which are small ornamental trees, in raised boxes, like in raised concrete box planters, and those are connected by some fencing and then little arbors at the entrance locations. There's 2 locations where those dark triangles show coming off the sidewalk, and they have little arbors over top. And then there's a paved area, which is kind of like a common area with a place to wait and sit under another arbor with a bench. And from that central location, you can go either way to either side on a brick paver walkway that leads you to the side yard access, which is just a series of stepping stones on either side. And we have a bit of room for some plantings on the right side. We have room for larger plantings, but on the left side, we have room for some more decorative plantings in front of the fence. And then coming around to the backyard, we have put permeable paving in the parking stall areas and left the driveway as open asphalt. And then we have, at the end of the driveway, we have our refuse and recycling, and we've covered that with another overhead arbor structure to match the one in the front, just for, you know, some added aesthetics. We have, in this instance, a corner to the top left, which is a bit larger because we have some landscape space there. So we've incorporated a pocket rain garden in that area, which will help with our stormwater. And we've got a large native tree, a Pacific flowering dogwood, proposed for that corner, which will create spring interest and be quite pleasant. And then we have some plantings along in the laneway dedication to soften the view of the parking, the sides of the cars of the parking. And essentially, it's a fairly simple landscape plan because it's just, I just wanted to keep it nice and clean. We have some ground covers underneath the overhang for the parking stalls, which will give us a little bit more greening. And I've been experimenting with some hardy ground covers that have been working pretty good in those situations. So I'm pretty confident that will add a little extra texture and color. And we've got 3 coniferous Serbian spruce at the end of the driveway. So when you drive in, you're actually looking at a green conifer wall of planting right there to kind of close the courtyard feeling. And generally that's it on this one. I think I also incorporated a sort of an image board for this as well. I don't know if you've got that, Joyce, but it sort of shows some imagery.
Yeah, let me pull that up. Brad, if you have that one, maybe you could pull it up.
Sure.
I just have the color plan yet.
Let me take a look. I do.
Okay.
Let's see if I can. Oh, hold on for a sec. I can share my screen. This one. Okay, can you guys see this one? No, this isn't the right one. It's the other one, right?
Right, that's the next one, yeah.
Review a little bit too quick here. Hang on. No, hang on for a second, guys. I have to actually open this on my screen. I'm sorry, guys. Hang on. Bear with me for just 1 second here. Okay. So, let me see. No. Thinking. There. That should do it. All right, can you see this one? Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, it's good to go.
Okay, so in the front, the arbors that we're proposing are wood arbors on brick columns and then fencing between. So that kind of an image that shows you the wood and the brick combined. The paper bark maple trees on the front street, you can see they're fairly solid canopy trees, but they've got a lot of interest in the interesting bark that they have and their fall color. We're also using some special cypress, you can't really call them trees, but they highlight the front of the building. They're very bright, vivid color, and we've used them as a kind of accent point. We have Pacific flowering dogwood in the backyard, which is a native tree, and then we have the stepping stones and gravel with accent plantings. We have a pocket rain garden in the back corner, which looks like that, which would have river rocks and plantings that are suitable for wet and dry conditions. We have a paved sidewalk condition on the front, and we also have permeable paved parking stalls, and that's it.
Okay, thanks. Is that everything then, Joyce?
Yes, that's it. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Do any of the panel members have questions of staff before we move on? I've got two actually. Here. First of all, I just wanted to ask Sadie, what's the heritage status of this property? That building is actually part of the 4th Chinatown of Nanaimo, and the building used to be the Chinese Freemasons Hall. I don't know what it is now or what its status is, and I'm just wondering if you could clarify that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not a registered heritage property that's protected. We do have a file with some historic photos that we like to keep for this type of thing, but it is it's not a protected heritage building.
Mm-hmm. Does the Chinese community have any relationship to it anymore, or is it passed on to other owners? Doug, maybe, I don't know. Did you want to answer that, Sadie, or maybe Doug had his hand up there?
I would defer to Doug if he has some insight to that. Thank you.
Okay, Doug, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the Freemasons were there, but previous to that, it was actually a restaurant. So it's not like it was developed by the Freemasons as a purpose-built structure for their activities, and it's associated with a secondary apartment in the back. So it's very much an old restaurant that they converted to their hall.
Okay, I wasn't sure. When I looked it up, I realized so. And I remember there was some Chinese writing on the outside, but that's changed now. I think it's another group just meeting in there or something. So, okay. My second question, Sadie, is regarding the property just behind that. I remember we looked at a project there, and I can't remember what it was. So this property backs onto what kind of development? Right now, the lot is still empty.
I will. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I would also defer to Douglas. I believe he was involved in this file and may have a better description. Thank you.
Great. That would be a great help. Thanks. Go ahead, Doug.
Yes, I own that property as well. And we came to you folks a few years ago. We have an approved DP for 2 triplexes there. So we're now in the building permit stage.
Okay, great. Yeah, it just gives me some idea of sort of how this plan is going to butt up against it and so on. So, great. Okay, thanks. We can go ahead and maybe, let's see, Angela, would you like to go ahead there?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody, for your presentation. Another welcome infill project. I think this project's definitely a welcome to the street, welcoming street presence as well. And great eyes on the street with all the balconies in the front, the side, and the rear. I feel like the landscaping plan really took advantage of what was available in the site with the constraints that it has. I feel like it'll be a very nice, have a nice street presence. And I think the only thing I had to add to this was just to do with the form, the building itself, and just with the color palette, just almost seems like it's trying to be one big house, but it's not. I just thought that maybe consideration of varying color scheme to sort of more individualize the units to provide some sort of more visual interest and individualization of the units themselves, and then just concur with staff on maybe trying to add some maybe some additional heritage detailing where feasible. It's a bit tricky because there's sort of a lot going on, but just to be on board with that. If there's opportunities for that, I was sort of thinking, the bay window on the side is a nice heritage feature, and maybe bringing that to the front of the building might be a nicer option than the trellises. There seems just lots of trellises, but I know that's again more expensive too. So that was just an idea I had, but I'll just leave it at that. And thank you very much. Great project.
Great. Thanks, Angela. Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the team for their presentation. I think this is a really excellent project, and I think the success of the project is reflected in the innocuousness of some of my comments. I think one of the things I really appreciate about the design is how it responds well to from a septed perspective by alternating the units. For the lower units facing back and the other units facing front, there's always presence and eyes on the front and the back of the site. So I think that's really well done. The only thing in the design documents that I see that are a little bit counter to that are just, again, innocuous. The door to the bike room is kind of tucked around a corner where you have to go into a dark landscaped space. It looks like you could probably flip that over to the other side without too much impact of it to make it a little bit of a safer experience for the building occupants. Again, I didn't see anything on the landscape plan or the civil. I'm sure you'll get there, but having to pay close attention to the drainage from the bottom of the bottom level patios, since they're recessed, making sure that there's water can be transported safely away from there. I appreciate the size and quantity of the patios dispersed throughout the property. There's very little occupiable landscape. I'm not sure how much that back rain garden that you're showing on the landscape is actually part of your infiltration strategy, but it might be nice if that was a little more usable. And then just a caution for the lighting selection. I like the site lighting that you're showing on the landscape plan, but just for the lights that will be on the rooftop patios, just a careful selection of those fixtures so that to minimize the amount of light pollution that may go onto the neighboring properties. And then again, just one, I don't mind the color scheme of I think the showing it as kind of a grand old house is kind of a nice approach. I like the distinction between the bottom level and the upper levels. I like the brick accents that Brad was showing as part of the landscape and the trellises. It's a little bit of a shame that doesn't show up anywhere on the house. It might be nice if the only thing I saw that might make sense is the storage blocks that stick out that are underneath the stairs as you're going up to the front. If that had a little bit more, if that could pick up some of the brick accents or something just to tie the landscaping to the building, it might be nice. But like I said, very nice job. My comments are relatively innocuous, and thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Jason. Hillary.
Yeah, thank you. I think, it was said during the presentation, this is like an elegant house. And I think really it's that, like you were just saying, the grand old house look. I think you've really achieved that with this. I think it looks like a beautiful place. And I think would fit in well with the OCQ's character. I think the variances, I support those. And I like the look of the raised, box planters and the arbors. I also wondered about the access to the bike storage, and I wondered if it was maybe on that side to minimize interference with the parked cars being right there. That's sort of the only reason I could think that it would be on that other side. And yeah, the patios look nice. So I'm jealous of whoever gets to live here. I think it looks like a nice development. Thank you.
And Ken. You have to unmute your mic.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I think I'm agreeable with all the other comments. I really like the character of the building, and the way you've treated the elevations and got the variations. I think you separated it 4 different blocks of units that you have there with color and materials. And I really like the sloping, your use of the sloping roofs. It seemed to bring it down to scale, and certainly the variances are really acceptable. Well, in fact, all the variances I don't have any issue with. I had a similar comment that everybody else had about the access to the bike rack, why it was on the other side than the car side, parking side. Anyways, all in all, I think it's a nice scheme, and I think it'll be a welcome addition to the neighborhood. That's about all my comments. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ken. Yeah, just to round out, I agree with everybody on these different comments. I think I kind of like the actual unified look of the building because, again, my first look at it was like, oh, this is just like some of those big old houses up on that hill. Some of them which are still standing and turned into sort of different little apartments. I think they're rented as single rooms or whatever. And so I think it just really fits in so well. That was my first thought. And I think it'll be a really welcome addition to that neighborhood, and looking forward to seeing those changes starting to shape that neighborhood. There's some real mix of buildings, so I think you're really setting the pace with it. So I would just agree with all the little comments. And if anything, in terms of form and character, would be in the landscape. I would encourage any opportunity to at least have a little bit more outdoor amenity space, a little larger space than just a few seats at the front. You are adding some bigger units with the 2 bedrooms, and if anybody's got some kids, I mean, even someplace where a little spot where they can walk their kid around. Up there, I think you're a little ways from a park. There's that Nob Hill Park a little ways away, but it would be nice to have something on the property for a little bit more of a yard of sorts. So otherwise, that would be my only recommendation there. So good work. Thank you. So we can have our committee just look at this. I'm not hearing any concern about the variances. So I think everybody's kind of okay with them. And in terms of recommendations, I'll just go through what I have on my notes. I don't know if anybody else wanted to agree along with Angela about the variety of the building. I'm hearing more of a consensus that it looks good the way it is. So, but I also, Jason mentioned adding some brickwork. So maybe a little bit, one recommendation would be to consider a little bit more variation in materials, particularly to complement the landscape design. So that might be one recommendation. Also consider changing the access to the bike locker and make it, just say changing the access to the bike locker. And Jason, I don't know if you wanted to include something on the drainage of the lower patios, or you're just bringing their attention to it.
No, I'm sure it'll be addressed throughout the permitting process. Thank you.
And what about the lighting comment that you made?
Just a bit of a caution or advisement to take into account the pollution that could come from that on the adjacent properties. So
right.
That could be a recommendation to look at that fixture selection.
Consider lighting selection. Okay. Okay, so then I'm seeing four recommendations. Consider ways to add some variety to the building exterior, in particular to complement the landscape design. Consider changing the access to the bike locker, and consider adding more outdoor amenity space where possible, and consider the lighting section on the patio area to minimize light pollution. How does that sound to everybody? Good? Okay. Well, if I can have a motion to accept this development proposal as presented with those 4 recommendations, along with support for the variances. And Ken will make the motion. Jason the seconding. Okay. And all in favor? Great. Excellent. Thanks, guys. And here we have, you guys are going to be on for the second one. So I think we can probably just go right ahead with that. And again, is Kriti going to be presenting this one as well? Okay, you get to do all the work tonight. Okay, go ahead, Kriti.
Okay, so here we have 532 Prado Street. Just to provide some orientation of the lot, this is Prado Street on the south side, and this is our lot. We have only one adjoining street and no side or rear streets, so we are providing the vehicular entrance to the lot as well from the south side of the lot. In this proposal, we have one multifamily building with a total of 4 units. There are 4 3-bedroom townhomes across 3 levels. This is a visual representation of an aerial view and some street views. So here we have the site plan of the project. As I mentioned, we have our drive lane entrance from Prado Street on the south. We've located our parking at the rear of the building and some amenity space as well in the rear. Our building is located towards the front of the property. We have a total of 4 units. We have 2 units located in the rear and 2 facing Prado Street with entrances facing the street. And we have 2 rear entrances facing the parking area. We have some common facilities located within the building, like the trash area is located here, and some bike storage and service rooms and storage rooms are located here. In terms of the individual site plans, they are all identical. We have our entrances on level 1 with living, kitchen, and 1 half bath. We have a staircase going to level 2. On level 2, as we enter, we have access to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And we also have a staircase going further up. As we enter the third level stairway, we have access to a larger bedroom and a bathroom, also open decks, 2 of them facing Prado Street and 2 of them facing the parking in the rear. The rear units also have potentially access to ocean views, especially on the upper floors. In terms of the grade of the site, we have a mild slope going down this direction, but towards this corner of the property, there's a slightly steeper slope going down this way. In order to mitigate the slope, we have stepped this portion of the property, the amenity space, in such a way that it is lower than the level of the drive in terms of the driveway and the parking located here. But there's a series of stairs that the residents can use to access the amenity space here. I'd like
Kriti's cutting out, or is that just me?
Yeah, it's frozen for
I
me
think
too.
she's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Well, I can jump in. Although I'm not sharing the screen. Give me a moment. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so I think she's done a pretty good job of going through. Oh, I just opened up the wrong project. Sorry. Go back to Prado. Wrong Prado.
Oh, apologies, I've had some internet. Is it okay if I continue now?
Sure.
Were you presenting, Joyce? Sorry.
I was trying to get it open to present, so you go for it. You can finish.
Okay. So we've, in terms of the side elevation, we've again stepped the building to mitigate some of the slope that we see here. And I think I can jump on to the 3D view to describe some of the elevational aspects. So here again, we've followed the design principles in the Old City guidelines. We have a traditional looking residential building. Here we have some color differentiation in terms of this being one unit and this being another, and we have two different colors for that. We also have two trellis features in the front here, and one on the side to access the rear and the units in the back. We have our parking located towards the rear of the building, and here again you can see the amenity space that has been stepped down to mitigate some of the slope that we are experiencing in this portion of the lot. I also want to point out that we have covered porch-like entrances for all of the 4 units, the 2 in the front facing the street as well as the 2 in the rear. Finally, I want to talk about the data on this building. So in terms of FAR and lot coverage, we're within the prescribed limits. In terms of parking, we're providing the total required parking. We do have some variances in terms of max height. We're requesting for a variance of less than 1 meter. And we also have a front setback variance and a height variance for the fence and retaining wall. So in terms of the max height, again, this is just the top of the gable roofs that we're requesting for a variance. And in this case, it's just the front piece. In terms of the front setback variance, we one of the reasons why we are requesting for this variance is not only the site constraint and adding in all the minimum dimensions, but also we are providing these front porch features both in the back units as well as the front units. And we feel this adds a positive impact to the building, and it might be worth sort of pushing the building slightly forward and asking for this variance. And finally, we're requesting for a height variance for the fence and retaining wall. And this again comes down to the site constraint and the way that the level sort of changes toward the rear of the property. This red portion here indicates the variance being requested. And we've tried our level best to mitigate the variance without changing the level of the parking. So we have the parking here, and we've stepped this down so we don't have a large piece of retaining wall here. So that would be something to keep in mind. Finally, overall, this is sort of similar to the Hecate Street project in the sense that those were 1 and 2 bedrooms that were 500 and 1,000 square feet. And this is 3 bedrooms that is around 1,400 square feet. So it is meeting the demand of increased housing need in this area, and while contributing to the aesthetic quality of the Old City neighborhood. It's just in different segments, I guess. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, so do you like me to explain the landscape? I'll share my screen if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Oh, this one. All right. So, can everybody see this one?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So, let's start off talking about the last project where we had the stormwater garden in the back corner. This one is giving you the added amenity space that you were hoping for on the other one. And part of that happens because of the grading, as was described. So we've kind of got a sunken garden kind of condition in the back corner. And so while it is fairly restrained in size, I put a lot of thought into fine detailing there so that we could maximize its kind of pleasantness. And along with that, we put in the back part of the building, we've turned instead of putting the permeable paving onto the parking stalls, in this case, we put it into the dog leg of the driveway so that we get a feeling of a communal courtyard in the back where, yes, cars park beside it, but the texture and the color is more visible to people looking down and would be an extension of these ground level patios, essentially, or a common area where people could, have a little yard sale or hang out or whatever and talk to their neighbors. And along with that brickwork that's in the back there, we've got a sidewalk that connects from the back courtyard to the front street. And so I've framed the permeable paving with a unit paver sidewalk configuration that'll take us out to the street and actually creates a complete walking loop around the building as well. You could see from the renderings, we've incorporated wooden trellis structures on the street. And we've also got, in this case, instead of 4 smaller trees, we have 2 larger trees on a kind of a boulevard strip where we have some hedging material. And then we have a small accent tree in between those up against the building for more detail and color and scale. We've got some greening along the driveway on the building side, so there's a bit of softening there. We have a little wooden arbor detail over the garbage refuse area, and you can see that picks up sort of traditional vocabulary of this kind of building. And all of those trellises all kind of match. The patio, we have the sort of patio spaces in the front, and we have patio spaces in the back. I think that gives in the individual unit people some nice outdoor space, to get out of their unit. But they could conceivably use that back corner amenity area as well as a kind of a place to get away from the parking, and it's kind of private. So that'd be an interesting feature. I can share this other, let me see. Let me share. Let's see if I can find. I'll just have to stop this for a second. There we go. Okay. So, okay, so can you see this one? This is the materials board for the project. The arbors in this case are a little bit simpler because the building has a lot more detail in terms of traditional materiality. We have a simple wood without any kind of columns, but we've used a repetition of these elements, so sometimes attached to the building, sometimes attached to the like freestanding gateways at the entrance to the long walkway and also to the individual units. And then the idea of this amenity area is kind of like this larger picture to the side where we have a combination of fencing and walls. And then so we've integrated some seating into that area, some special planting. Obviously, there's a stairway that goes down to it and some planters that wrap around it. So we'll be doing some built-in benches and provision for an outdoor fire in the middle to kind of animate that space. It's very contemporary in terms of slabs, paving, and gravel, and you can see that in this one where the pavers are kind of broken up into modules. And again, we've got the permeable paving in the driveway and the paved walkways going around the project. And I think that's it.
Great. Okay, so that's it from our presenters then. Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff on this one? Okay, I don't see any. Ken, would you like to get started? Turn your mic on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the presentation. I think it's this project complements the other one, and again, I like the character of the building, the use of the slope roofs, and the color separations identifying the two separate units. I also like the use of the wood trellises that you used around the building. I think it kind of softens it, which along with the landscaping will greatly enhance the street view, certainly. And I had no objection to any of the variances. Other than that, and I think although access to amenity spaces might be difficult, but it certainly is accessible and would be a great amenity to the residents. Other than that, I don't have anything else, and I approve of all the variances.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Hillary, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, I think it looks really nice. I think it'll fit well with the other houses along Prideaux Street there. Like the peaked roofs look really similar to the Judge Harrison house, which is just 2 doors away on the top of that hill. So yeah, I think it's a nice look. I definitely support the variances to make the best use of that site. I like the amenity space in the back, that it's sort of like 70s conversation pit vibes from that sunken area. So that seems kind of fun. And the permeable paving stones are nice. Trellises on the street. I feel like it's a little bit weird with that trellis on the far side of the driveway, and then the driveway, and then the building, but I don't know how you get around that. And I like that it at least goes all the way around the building, so maybe a little kid can ride their bike around that little area. I don't know, could be cute, but I think they've done a nice job.
Great, thanks, Hillary. Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I'd like to start with a question, actually, because I noticed the massing from the SketchUp models doesn't quite align with the plans. There's some more bump outs and things on the model than the plans are very rectilinear without that variation. And I was wondering, which one is the governing design direction?
The bump out would be integrated into the floor plan if we haven't already done that. Are you referring to the sides?
Yeah, on the sides, yeah. There's the one that sticks out that it has the slightly roof kink on it, and then on the other side, closest to the property line, there's 2 smaller bump outs. So yeah, we would,
when we originally looked at it, we looked at integrating it into the plan. It was just not a
fair enough. Okay,
that's the intention, is to give facade variation along that edge for sure.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other thing, obviously, when I look at the site plan, there's a lot of cover on it, and I understand the rationale for it to get the drive aisle to accommodate the 5 parking spaces. Did you look at a potential option where you have the 3 stalls, almost like when you first come back, and then 2 turns horizontally, but it might free up a lot of the space at the back for more landscaping? A thought, just because I understand that it's a very tight site, but it might be some opportunity for a little more green space in the back there by studying that a little bit. Otherwise, I'd like the wood accents on the building. I like how it picks up on the neighborhood context and the landscaping elements as well, to tie the building and the landscape together. Otherwise, I have no further comments beyond that, and I am in support of the variances. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Jason. Angela?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again for the second presentation. I'll just start with the variances. I don't have any issues with the variances as they're presented. And again, I think this project is another nice welcoming street presence and great eyes on the street with the balconies and the windows, and as well as in the rear of the building. I'd have to say that with just one of the comments that staff had made about moving the building to the east versus the west side, feel like that might be a good consideration, just with keeping the walkway tied in to the amenity space and the building closer to that amenity space and that main walkway as well. And I don't know, and just create less conflict between the cars and pedestrians, say, crossing over to the amenity space from the building. I don't know, those conversations have been had, but it seems like that's maybe still on the table with staff making that recommendation. So if there's an opportunity to keep the building and the amenity space closer and tie it in nicer with the main walkway, I think that would be a good conversation to have. And then tying that into with what Jason said, if there's a way to tighten up the parking so that you could open up that amenity space a little bit more, create more green space, maybe allow for a basketball hoop or something there, because this being 3 bedrooms, I'm sure will attract families. So that's where the amenity space will be important. So I think aside from that, that was what I had. So thank you very much. Another good project.
Great, thanks, Angela. Yeah, another project that fits really well into the neighborhood. I thought, you've added details there that architecturally help it to fit the neighborhood guidelines and the characteristics of the neighborhood. Another good addition of multifamily homes. And my only concern, I reiterate some of the things I've heard here, but one that nobody's pointed out is that I was kind of wondering about the decks on the upper floor. You have one is covered with a very nice roof, and then the other one doesn't seem to have any cover. Not sure what you do about that. I can understand why it works with the design. It looks nice with the design. So I don't know if there's a way that you can provide some cover on the uncovered deck, at least a little bit or a part way, but I'm not sure how that would work architecturally. And then my other concern is as mentioned here, the drive aisle. I'm not sure first of all, the trellis doesn't, to me, fit in at all at the end of that driveway. It just sort of stands there and doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And maybe what Angela was talking about, moving the building to the other side, might resolve that problem and having your walkway along there. I also find the walkway along the east side, I understand Brad's point about it making a nice circle, but I don't think anybody's going to use it. They're going to tend to come out their door and walk along the side of the building or across the driveway diagonally. So you're putting in all that brickwork and so on. I just find it really hard to believe that it's going to be used in a practical sense. So again, maybe some thought put into the siting of the building and the driveway. And again, I would encourage any opening up of more amenity space, but I like the little amenity space you have provided. I think it's a great idea to have a little sort of private place where people can go sit around a fire or something. So good project anyway. So thank you. And I have no problem with the variances as well. So, okay. So with the committee, I'm hearing a couple recommendations. So not sure how to phrase this because it's kind of mostly around that orienting the building or the drive aisle and the sidewalks. Anybody have a suggestion on what we might want to, how we might want to phrase that? Jason, what were your thoughts on the building being moved one way or the other to the side of the property?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think if you shifting the building, like if you moved it to one side or the other, you're essentially just getting the same issue mirrored onto the other side. So I don't know that that's because you have to still accommodate the drive aisle. So I don't know if shifting the building around will make a material difference in the design. I mean, there's certainly conversation can be had around the extent of the paving on the east side of the building. I know there's the bicycle room there, so that needs access. Which is, I imagine, the reason why that's there. But I'm not sure that resiting the building would make a huge difference. I think they're kind of, it is what it is in a way.
Yeah. No, I think the idea of resiting the building was to have the amenity space then in the far corner, as opposed to the end of the drive aisle. It pushes it in the other direction because they can't.
Oh, I see.
They have the amenity space in that spot because it's lower.
Yeah. That could be beneficial, so that it is a little more private, but it's okay.
One half.
we can make a recommendation that they take a look at it, but I think that would be about the extent.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Angela, what would you?
Just to add to that point too, it seems a bit like ominous if I was sitting in that fire pit area and a car was coming in straight at me with the lights sort of shining sort of right in my eyes. So maybe for that reason too, safety reason, cars driving in towards the parking stall rather than straight towards an amenity space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joyce, go ahead.
The amenity and parking was definitely it's probably the thing we messed around with the most. The amenity was located there because of the additional retaining wall height that would be required. And it seemed the most logical place to put it because we could set it lower without creating more wall for the neighbor behind us. And then I think that when I look at the streetscape, it's interesting always hearing different people's perspectives on a site, because I think when we looked at the street, the building felt more appropriately to be sited next to the apartment building that it sits next to versus on the other side where there's more of a single family. So when we looked at the siting, we were looking at the relationship of the driveways and the streetscape more than we placed a higher priority on that than where then the amenity kind of fell where it needed to fall and the building sat where it sat. But it's definitely an interesting idea to flip it. And if it's a recommendation, we can discuss it with Doug. But from our perspective, I think that was our initial feeling was it felt like the building sited next to the multifamily felt a little bit more comfortable than throwing it next to the single family.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. I'm thinking just a simple kind of recommendation about considering the walkways, parking, and amenity space, and the relationship to the building, and just leave it at that, because I think we've talked about it. You've heard our ideas, and I think you're going to have to do what you can do with that property. So I think that's really all it is. It's a point to just note that we've made a point of it. So, and I think that's the only recommendation. I don't think there wasn't really any others. Or did I miss something? No. Okay. And I don't hear any support for the variances. So, can I have a motion to accept the presentation, the project as presented, and with the one recommendation and support for the variances? Do you want to make the motion? Jason's going to make the motion. Seconder. Ken, all in favor? Great. Okay, that's done. Thank you very much, everybody, and Joyce and Doug and Chrissy for coming with Brad. And it's been 2 presentations in a row, so that's great. Lots of work done. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, and I don't think we have any other business. So if I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting, we can finish up. Somebody want to make the motion? Angela, seconder, Ken, all in favor? I don't think anybody will disagree with that.